If by chance I have omitted anything more or less proper or necessary, I beg forgiveness, since there is no one who is without fault and circumspect in all matters. Fibonacci.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Yeah, that was smooth. Y'all welcome.
Good.
You're welcome.
He's in the groove now. He's getting his groove on, and we're moving on. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to another great episode of This Uncanny Earth. We're going to be looking at Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. But before we get into that, first, we have a sponsor.
This week's episode of This Uncanny Earth is brought to you by Blanders & Son, the gold standard in lowbrow radio entertainment for over 50 years. Blanders & Son, we don't do that heavy metal bumper music.
It covered up Rob's face completely.
It's a good one. They're a good sponsor. Okay. I'm glad they signed up for us.
Okay.
I'm glad they're affiliated. So yeah, welcome. After that, it's a finally not rainy day here in Ohio because everybody always wants to hear about the weather first thing. I grilled today. I did some grilling.
Nice.
Grilled some sausages out there. Steven, what did you do? What did you do today? On this wherever you were at in Tennessee.
I worked all day as usual.
Exciting times in Steven land.
Yep.
Rob, how about you? I don't want to delve too deeply. I know you got some things going on, and I'm not gonna put anything front and center. That's your own business. I've been watching your game stream, so I know there's been stuff behind the scenes, and just making sure everybody's got our thoughts about you and that kind of thing. But
no doubt, it's
not to put you on the spot or anything.
Oh, you're good. It's one day at a time. So we gotta take one day at a time. I went to the library today with my son. We got some much needed knowledge, equipment to handle the coming things ahead. And this is a good one. I think you might even enjoy this yourself. This is Mind Design 3.
I did see that. I did see that on your post today.
Ooh.
That's heftier than it looked in the picture, too. I thought it was going to be
look
thinner.
at that. Yeah,
Ooh,
no.
Nice.
and then it did me a favor and made sure the words were extra small, too.
Because,
yeah.
That's how you know it's packed with stuff that's important.
It's very cool because I'm interested to see where the psychology and the philosophy of AI comes into play. And I think they're doing it from the AI's perspective, which is a very interesting look. So this will be taking up a good chunk of my time as I mend and get back on it. I'm in the gym hardcore now. Hardcore. Because that's the place, that's the first step to better mental preparedness is I got to get the body back. I'm trying to get abs for once in my life. I'm trying to get abs. We're going to see what that looks like. But that's what I'm
body. All right, good. Excellent. Well, we'll get right down to it. This episode is going to be a bit tricky for some people, and I'm going to try to avoid some of the heftier equational stuff just because I'm not going to be able to explain it in a way that gives it justice because I'm not that good of a math guy.
I'm still trying to learn it, though.
This is the topic that's going to fit really well with next week's topic, which is going to be for Rob with sacred geometry, and that's really why we're doing it. And he's going to probably have to help me out with some of this stuff as we go along because I know I'm.
It's all right.
I failed some math classes back in school.
Hey,
so
I did
don't
too.
add good.
Oh no! Listen, I did fail too.
It's got me interested in math, though.
Same.
But we're talking about the Fibonacci sequence, Now, for anybody who has not heard about what this is, it's not necessarily surprising because it's kind of an area where you have to be into kind of metaphysical, mathematical stuff to really get, or a mathematician to be into and to have heard about it. A few pop culture sources have used it in some of their material, but it's a pretty fascinating how it interacts with everything else. To put it really simply, we're going to start off with just what it is, and then we're going to talk about Fibonacci, and then we're going to get into the math parts, and we're going to get into the golden ratio after that, because that's a whole other angle that's super interesting in how this combines. So
I'm going to pull the map stuff up on the side here so that
excellent.
I get a brief refresher, because it is, if anybody's ever read the Quadrivium, it's very much similar. So
Yeah,
I like the square visuals with the spirals.
yeah. The sequence itself is relatively easy to understand. It's how it's used that that make it kind of dense as far as,
yes,
and I don't mean dense with like a dunce cab, like, oh, I'm kind of dense, but dense as in there's a lot to it that if you don't understand the equations and the real deep mathematics, you're going to be kind of lost, like I was for a lot of it. The Fibonacci sequence is a series of numbers, and what it is each element is the sum.
Yes,
of
1.618.
two elements that precede it. So
just start them with that. Start them with the 1.618, because then they'll correlate it with pi. So they'll be like, oh,
right.
2.14. Well, the golden ratio is 1.618.
That's why he's the math guy, because he just write out like that,
yeah,
without even like thinking about it. So,
yeah,
what that means from a practical perspective, if you're going to write out the sequence, because you don't have to be a mathematician to write it out. You have to have basic addition. But if you're starting from 0, you put 0, then 1, then 0 and 1 you add together, you get 1 after that. So 0, 1, 1. Add 1 and 1 together to get 2. So then you've got 0, 1, 1, 2. Then 1 and 2 together to get 3. And each step you go back and add the previous number to the current number. And it goes up and up and up and up and up. And it continues pretty much forever, depending on what you're using it for. Appearance-wise, when they write it out, they'll do it in grids where it'll become a spiral sort of shape.
I would say a snail. Like if you look how the
it's-
snail casing is, it's a very snail casing. Like,
It's
Or a
not a pure
honeycomb.
spiral where it just spirals in infinitely. It spirals out in a way that
They never interact with each other.
Yes, it keeps increasing the radius of the spiral, more of an oblong spiral, and keeps on going and going and going.
You know what? Hold on a second. Let me actually do you a solid real quick, because I want to pull this up for people. So, because I want them to be able to understand the math, because the math is the quintessential hardest part of this whole thing. So let me hold on. Presenter invite, because it'll make sense. Share screen. Is this it? Yeah. Okay, so let's do the first one, right?
Yeah.
So if you get 2 and 3, you add them together over here, where that's on the far left, because I don't think you can see my cursor. 2 and 3 equals 5. 5 and 8 equals 13. 13 and 21 equals 34. And then you would go 34 plus whatever number next, and then it continues increasingly just like that. So that is how the Fibonacci sequence works. I just, like, if you want me to pull this stuff, I'll just pull it, because if people understand it, they'll be like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then they'll get into it.
That's the part I was talking about that
I don't want to lose people.
I considered getting some photos and downloading a bunch of stuff, but the last time I remember it got kind of stuttery and I didn't want to mess up the flow of the show. But that's good though, because you have easier access to that kind of stuff than I do. My tablet is not as quick to do that as your PC over there.
That's right. So, I'm in PC land.
PC Master Race. But the Fibonacci numbers were described as early as 200 BC in India, in Indian mathematics, by someone named Pingala, and he was enumerating possible patterns of Sanskrit poetry formed from syllables of two lengths. Now, they're named after a man named Fibonacci, who's also known as Leonardo of Pisa. They have just like today, where you have in Arabic, you have a lot of common names, like you have Muhammad this, Muhammad that, you have all this. In Italy, they had a lot of Leonardo somebody or other, Leonardo this and Michelangelo this, because they were named after famous saints or famous angels and whatnot, because it gave you prestige and whatnot. And Fibonacci introduced the sequence to Western European mathematics in 1202 in a book called Liber Abaci. Fibonacci lived between 1170 and 1240, 1250. I guess they're unsure when his exact death was. He was an Italian mathematician. He was considered to be the most talented Western mathematician of the Middle Ages. So he's a pretty important guy as far as developing mathematics in general at the time. He was one of the most important people in bringing over the Arabic numbers and incorporating them into our modern number system, because that's where all of our numbers come from. We don't use the I, X, whatever from the Romans.
I'm so glad.
We use the Arabic numbers, which is also different from how certain other countries like Russia and some of those other, they use Cyrillic alphabets, and their numbers are also different. So ours are based off of the Arabic versions of numbers, and he was essential in bringing those into Western understanding. And you can see how good he was at it, because obviously we're still using those today with no problems. And nobody thinks, oh, those are some Middle Eastern numbers. Now I'm going to be mad because I'm sure there's somebody who's going to be bigoted about it if they found out that we're using Arabic numbers. Ah!
I also agree with Lighthouse Flame. I've tried to add Roman numerals. It is it's painful. It's because you start getting into L's and X's and C's and
the display
M's.
is really because you can't just you can't just stack them together and assume they're all going to work. You have to have a sequence, and
that was part of my understanding of why he brought his numbers over here from the Arabic system, is because it was so much easier to add and do math with them.
Yeah, 100%.
All you needed was 9 digits and 0.
It'd be easier, like 1, 2, 3. Right, which is the same kind of, but it's not for Roman numerals, because you start getting 4, 5. 1, 2, all this jazz.
E-L, X.
Yeah, E-L, X, M, C, and we're talking I did this because math. It was like 10,000, and I'm like trying to add them together. I'm like, no, we're done, because there's a way you have to do it, and it's not just like taking 3 + 4 = 7. It's different.
The other thing about Roman numerals is that they're also based in Latin, and Latin not only has rules for language, they have rules for numbers, and their numbers and their language are intertwined in a way that I've never taken Latin.
Go look at it.
I've never taken it as a class, but I've seen enough of it to know that just trying to get, because they had, you know what? Some Latin might be actually good for 2025, because they had like 12 pronouns and this and that and all kinds of stuff. So, and I don't mean to make any jokes at people's expense, but Latin was like that, and you also had to say your sentences based off of which one of those you were using, and it changed both the sentence structure and how you said some of the words.
Yes.
And you can see some of the legacy of that
in tattoos, in bad tattoos.
Well, in there, but also you can see it in Spanish, because you have the change in like the A or the O for male or female in the Spanish language.
It's a very feminine, masculine language. That one is.
And so they carry some of the legacy of Old Latin in that, but not quite to the same extent. But it can be difficult. That's why for some people in the United States, it's difficult to learn Spanish, as opposed to, and they have difficulty learning English sometimes too, because our rules are so different. Our rules are really brute force. Like,
right.
English language is like
they're basically like, listen, we don't care if you don't like it. sun, sun, and sun. All right, and they all mean something else.
Our language doesn't make any sense, and we have 8 million exceptions to the rules with no
2,
rules
2, and
to the
2.
exceptions. I'm gonna stop
2,
there
2.
before I get on the whole rant.
Yeah, we're gonna go on a language tangent, and that's not what the show's about. We can talk about languages sometime. But Latin's a dead language too. But you have to remember the math, follows the language. So you're it's like doing cuneiform addition.
Now, getting back to the Fibonacci sequence, why is it important? Now, we use it in the reason it's so important is because it appears so often, the sequence, in things both in life and in just natural mathematic work. It's so common. There's an entire journal dedicated to the study of the sequence in common things. It's called Fibonacci Quarterly, which is fantastic. Like, just something like that. Like, hey, I'm going to sign up for the Fibonacci Quarterly. And just all you get every month, it's Fibonacci all the time.
You better love Fibonacci. Like, you better just eat, sleep, and drink Fibonacci.
It's got to keep on going.
Because is this still in publication?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, let me take a look at it.
Is it in English or is it in Italian?
It's the current present editor is a professor from the mathematics department of the University of Central Missouri.
Ooh.
So I would imagine you can get it in English.
Hey, y'all know this Fibonacci sequence? That's not how they talk.
It's the primary publication of the Fibonacci Association and has been published since 1963 and is published 4 times a year. So you get 4 issues every year.
Wow. I would be curious their subscriber base. I want to know who their subscriber base is.
Yeah.
To keep something like that going, because you got to have I don't know how that works, like a press or a printer or something. That's paper, ink. So it's like it's probably like one of them old Gutenberg printing press where they made the Gutenberg Bible.
You can look at it online. There's an online index to the Fibonacci Quarterly covering volumes 1 to 55, which is from 1963 to 2017.
Wow!
It includes a title index, an author index, an elementary problem index, advanced problem index. So you can search by the advanced problems, miscellaneous problem index, which is things that don't fit into either of those.
It's making my head hurt.
Quick reference keyword index. It's available online to subscribers, and on December 31st, let's see. I'm
interested. You had me at problems.
It doesn't say, but I'm sure you'll be able to find it. But the thing of it is, it deals directly with topics that are very closely related to Fibonacci numbers, such as Lucas numbers, a whole other area, the golden ratio, which we're going to talk about, Zeckendorf representations, binet forms, Fibonacci polynomials, and it goes on. So if you are, continued fractions, Stirling numbers, Pythagorean triples, and it just continues. So if you are that into math.
So the regular membership is $34. The regular membership with print copies is $55. Sustained membership is $89. Sustained membership with print copies is $90. Benefactor membership.
Is that per month or per year?
Damn. Benefactor membership is $987. And benefactor membership with print copies is $988. It's kind of fire.
Think that's per year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
I would say per month, that's a lot of Fibonacci. You got to get a lot of Fibonacci for your money.
Well, that's like 4 months, right? So 4, 8, 12. Yeah, that's 4 months. So you're getting one every 4 months. So I would hope it was a year. If it's a month and you're paying darn near $1,000, that's $4,000 a year. Wow, that's cool.
That's it's. The more you look at it, the more you realize how important it is to enough people that it's got that. I mean, that's a lot of stuff to keep on going since the 60s and not run out of material. It's got to be foundational. It's got to be something really important.
They also have free resources too online. I just downloaded a book called An Introduction to Fibonacci Discovery by Brother U. Alfred.
Ooh.
Anyway. Now, some of the applications that you use these in, other than a curiosity, are in areas called the Fibonacci search technique, with a method of searching a sorted array using a divide and conquer algorithm that narrows down possible locations with the aid of Fibonacci numbers. So it's something that computers can use.
I'm interested to see where the computer, the quantum programming goes with all this, though.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I needed.
I'm sure
to
it's
let
foundational for some of that stuff too. There's something called the Fibonacci heap data structure, and there are graphs called Fibonacci cubes, which are probably the ones that you pulled up, that are used for interconnecting parallel and distributed systems. Before we go too much further on that, Stephen, what are your thoughts about the importance of the sequence, and just give me some ideas of how you feel about the whole thing, because I know there's a lot to it.
Yeah, I've always hated math, but when I started looking into the Fibonacci sequence, I realized it is the foundation of reality. And with 0 at its helm, it always has to start with 0, because 0 is God. 0 is the beginning and the ending, the alpha and the omega, the most powerful. Everything comes from 0. And it always starts with 0. And the Fibonacci sequence is in everything, from honeycombs to bumblebees to flies and their eyes and everything. It's all over the place. And like you're going to talk about here in a few minutes, the golden ratio, and it is very foundational in computer science, like you mentioned a second ago, and how it talks with computers and their programs and how it searches through their programs and everything. And I am going to stop very soon, I promise, because I'm getting very excited and I could go for an hour. But I also have come to the conclusion that I believe the Fibonacci sequence is proof of the simulation theory, and that with all the stuff together, the Fibonacci sequence, the number 0, computer science, theoretical physics, and quantum computing, like Rob mentioned just a second ago, I think one day we could actually prove this. And when I go to college for computer science, I'm actually going to make this my thesis paper to earn my PhD. When I'm ready to do that, is I would like to contribute my own way of using the Fibonacci sequence in conjunction with computer science and theoretical physics to lend credence to the theory of simulation theory. And I'll stop there.
Did you have anything else you needed to say? Is there anything else that you needed to get off?
I got very excited.
I'm glad.
2 points before I throw it over to Rob. One is, now I know exactly what your Intern's Odyssey show is going to be about.
Yes.
It might be a long one this week. And the second one is, believe it or not, even though most people start at 0, Fibonacci himself started from 1 and 1,
the rabbits,
from 0
right?
and 1. So, it's an interesting way of looking at it. He considered it to start from 1 rather than 0, but 0 has always been kind of a controversial number in mathematics over time, depending on what the prevailing view is. So, Rob, same question. What do you think?
I'm a personal believer, as everybody knows, that mathematics is the essential language to the universe. Everything has shape and form, because when it doesn't have shape or form, it's ugly. Like, people don't like things that don't really have shape or form.
Asymmetric.
Yes, you like to look at things that are pretty or beautiful, like me, or you like to look at things that are pretty and beautiful, like other things that are pretty and beautiful, but me. No, I'm messing around. But it's just in how everything works. Windows are mostly squares for a reason. Obviously, you have triangle windows and you have circle windows, obviously, but for the most part, they're square. It's just an easy shape. Houses are usually square. You don't see a lot of triangle houses unless you have a pyramid. I don't think a lot of people have pyramids, but I could be wrong. I've made mistakes before in my life, many. But for me, it's more cementing of the fact, because everybody has seen the picture of the leaf with the Fibonacci sequence going over the leaf.
And trees.
It's just,
where I'm headed next.
It's to me, nature is showing you that there is an intelligent creation behind everything. I don't think everything is just happenstance. Like, it just didn't all of a sudden, No, I think there's an intelligence, because there's math in it. And I think when you have math and things, and that math is starting to correlate with the other math that we have in our daily routines and our daily lives and the way we do things, it's just, to me, it just reveals an intelligent creator. However people believe, but for me, it would be God, and that makes sense to me.
And I want to expand on that point, that one of the things that makes the sequence so interesting is not that somebody just came up with it and then ran with it and used it to describe a bunch of things. It's that it happens naturally when you apply it to nature, outside of a laboratory, outside of people trying to do computer things, outside of trying to figure out problems. It occurs in a lot of biological settings, like you said, the arrangement of leaves on a stem. It's in the branching in trees, the fruit sprouts of a pineapple, the flowering of an artichoke, and the arrangement of a pine cone's bracts. And while it doesn't occur in all species, it does occur often enough that it's a clear correlation that because we can see this sequence applied to so many things in the natural world that exist outside of our natural understanding, that aren't things that we created, they're not things that we made or imagined up, that the number sequence has to be something foundational. It has to be something we've hit on that's just like some secret code to the way that things work, either whether just on a planetary scale or an entire universal scale. Because you see it in the orbits of planets. You see it in a lot of different ways, in spiral galaxies and things of that nature. It's a fascinating... It's fascinating to see. When you look at it first on paper, you're like, okay, what does that mean? It's just this plus this plus this plus this, and it just goes on. It's not a big deal. And then you see how that describes the growth of a leaf, or the growth of a fruit, or the growth of different things out there that had nothing to do with just looking at the numbers of the page. It's kind of humbling, to be honest. And while I'm not a very religious kind of person, I am a spiritual person to a certain level, and I can see the connection with all this, that there is a deeper level to all of it. It can't be a coincidence. And it's not one of those things where, it can't be a coincidence, conspiracy theory, put on my tinfoil hat. It's just so obvious that this describes things in the greater consciousness so perfectly that it has to be right.
Yeah, it's too perfect. It's a perfect series of things that all give life. That if one thing was off, even by a couple of degrees, it could throw off the whole plan.
Our faces.
Yeah.
It's super interesting.
Beautiful.
Our faces follow the golden ratio.
But yeah, it's just fascinating how it all works. And just to throw in some various some interesting asides to it, the Fibonacci sequence has been used in different pop culture things as a interesting kind of prop over the years. The most prominent that I'm aware of is for the Tool album Lateralis, where the track sequence is supposed to be based on the Fibonacci sequence. Now, the thing about Tool is they say a lot of things to get people to be like, I'm smart, I'm a Tool fan, I'm in the know, they said this. So it
don't be a tool, man.
People have looked at it, and it's kind of, maybe not. But it is interesting that they're into the concept. And I'm kind of more interested in the fact that, hey, yeah, they're into these concepts rather than actually seeing it in how they say it is, because they do like to just play games with people, because that's what they do.
I mean, I went to the one of their concerts when I was younger, like in my 20s. And it was the weirdest concert I've ever been to. Almost like a church.
Oh,
it's an experience.
Like in a weird way. Yeah. Because they had the big flow. Because you remember the Lateralis album had the eyes in a circle.
Yep.
So that just started rotating on the screen. It was weird, man. I can't listen to them anymore. It makes me uncomfortable. The sound.
I've heard that from more than one person. Now we're going to transition to the next half of the show here, and how it connects to another concept that's super interesting. The Fibonacci's are related to the golden ratio by way of something called Benet's formula. and it implies that the ratio of two consecutive Fibonacci numbers tends to the golden ratio as part of it increases. Now, what is the golden ratio? Well, look, let me switch my articles here to make sure I talk about that. Loading my page here. Now, this part is going to sound kind of like, what is he talking about? What? But I'm going to simplify it for you in a minute.
What?
In basic, the way that it's described in mathematics, okay? Two quantities are in the golden ratio if their ratio is the same as the ratio of their sum to the larger of the two quantities. I know that sounded like a bunch of blah, blah, blah to people who aren't math people. I get it. But what it is, it's been around for a long time. And I have a picture of it, but of course I didn't come prepared with pictures. So if Rob has a picture,
I've got one. You sure? You're darn right I did. Check this out. What's
to
this
illustrate
badness?
it so you can see it.
Boom. There you go.
That's the goal. And you can see the Fibonacci sequence as the spiral within that. You see the two different sizes, the ratio of the two geometric shapes.
Yes.
Why is it the golden ratio? Because it's considered a perfect ratio in architecture, in nature, and in just in art, and in a lot of different areas, because it shows up so often, just like the Fibonacci sequence. It's so common that it has to be either intentional or so natural that, and that's another thing. Perfect, because perfect is a weird. Thank you, Lighthouse, for bringing up that point, because that's a difficult word to quantify almost, because we say things are perfect a lot of times when they're a raging mess, or when they're just, oh, that's just really good, it's perfect. Perfection in this case is in that it's mathematically provable, mathematically symmetrical,
proofs are
mathematically in ways that you don't need to disprove it, because it's so clear that the answer is true. That's what it is. It's a perfect. It's as close to perfection as you could find in the universe, to our knowledge. And it's been described by a lot of people over the years. Euclid, who was a mathematician active in Greece in 300 BC, he's the father of geometry. He called it the extreme and mean ratio, and it was called the divine proportion by Luca Pacioli, who was a mathematician and Franciscan friar who was a collaborator with Leonardo da Vinci in the 1400s. So it's been around a lot also. The thing of it is, it's the ratio of a regular pentagon's diagonal to its side. And so it shows up in the construction of the dodecahedron, the icosahedron. There's a golden rectangle. And it's used today, even outside of architectural things, to analyze artificial systems such as financial markets. That's how deep it can be used, because you go from building pyramids and building monuments and building these things, and now you're using it to analyze the stock market in a way that isn't like gaming it and trying to get yourself a bunch of money, but just analyzing the trends and analyzing the growth and how it's constructed. And it was used so often in ancient ruins. We find it, if you go and you measure the pyramids today, you'll find the golden ratio. If you measure Greek structures around a similar time period, you'll find the golden ratio.
What about
Stonehenge? Lot of
Stonehenge might be different because it was more druidic.
Okay.
And the druids, I think, probably I think the Druids came before the Fibonacci sequence, but it doesn't matter because I don't think they knew about the Fibonacci sequence.
Okay.
That's not to say that that's not a possibility,
Yeah.
but you have to understand you're dealing with people that are building things in a different way.
Stonehenge was a
let's do
straight
that.
circle rather than a spiral. It wasn't.
Yeah.
And it was designed for
Mhm.
the way that the light went through it and the way that the sound went through it. Because they've done acoustic tests with Stonehenge so that the sound can carry it. We talked about that another couple episodes ago, I think.
Oh, it is. It actually says it has been claimed that Stonehenge incorporates the Fibonacci sequence in its design. Some research suggests that the structure's linear dimensions and the number of Sarsen columns align with numbers in the Fibonacci sequence, such as 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, and 89.
But it is highly debated, according to what I read.
That's what it said, because it does say some researchers. That leaves that little wiggle room.
Just to make sure everyone knows that it's debated.
It is possible that when they made it, they weren't thinking of the sequence as opposed to other cultures that made their things with the sequence. But because it's such a natural part of creating things and being in nature, that it may have naturally included aspects of it, just like the ratio.
Well, maybe let's look at it from this angle. Maybe you can't escape it.
Yeah,
maybe
no
because of
who
we are, because of our DNA, our nature, everything else. You're going to do it regardless. It doesn't matter what you do.
It's hardwired into your brain.
It's going to take pieces or holes of the Fibonacci sequence. So maybe Stonehenge, while not some guy was sitting with a thing like build it like the Fibonacci sequence, it didn't matter how they built it. It was already built.
And Lighthouse is right. Devil is always in the detail.
Right.
And you can sometimes think, oh, this is so perfect and this is so grand, it must be attached to this other thing. The trick is that if you're going to assume that something lines up with the sequence or the golden ratio, measure it, check it out, find out.
Yeah.
Now, even if it still lines up with that, that doesn't mean that it was intended to be that way. That's another thing. Intent is a whole other area that you can't really control. But the golden ratio, like the Fibonacci sequence, it appears outside of ways that we have used it artificially. It shows up in patterns in nature like the spiral arrangement of leaves and other parts of vegetation, just like the Fibonacci sequence. They're kind of intertwined in a lot of ways. Certain 20th century artists and architects like Salvador Dali, they proportioned their works as close as possible to the golden ratio because they found it to be aesthetically pleasing. They also, we also see often in art that the ratio appears as a golden triangle somewhere in a piece. So certain people used it, whether they understood it or not, is kind of beside the point. They felt that it was important. And they felt that it was necessary, and it showed up in a lot of places. So let's talk about that a little bit. We all know about the Great Pyramids. We know the Great Pyramids are the greatest example of the golden ratio because they're always what people point to first. But we talked a show or two ago about the Masons. We talked about the Freemasons and how they were different from today. They used to be actual Masons. They used to build things. They weren't just a bunch of old people hanging out in a club doing funny things. And they weren't taking over the world like some people say.
Oh.
But they used knowledge of the golden ratio and they used knowledge of the Fibonacci sequence in a lot of the things they constructed. The question is, was that meant simply because that was how to make something that worked and that fit together really well and mathematically connected? Or was there a deeper meaning to it? They put that in there specifically to communicate with others that they knew or with future generations. That's a big question. So what we're going to do, since Rob's in it, we're going to ask you first.
I'm in it.
We're going to let you talk about it.
I'm in it. Remember, I'm in it. No, I think that's always the case. I think sometimes it's a brag. It's like, hey, I built this, John, suck it. because John sucks
Ratio.
and he couldn't build for shit. So this guy, or pardon the language, ooh, got a little PG. But I think also it's sort of a monument to the building itself. Like, wow, I built this. I'm not just saying I, but like me and my crew, we built this. It's not like today where you can have crane operators and you got all these things coming in. This was hand work kind of things, man. So there was more pride in it. There wasn't the automated systems. You had to measure, you had to do it. It had to be perfect. It had to be perfect. Because we still see a lot of buildings that were made by Freemasons standing today. Look at Washington, D.C., for example.
Most supposedly of the main part of the city.
Thing too.
What about the monument?
The Washington, the Washington Johnson.
Yeah.
Once again, not to get into too graphical detail, but sexualized imagery is found throughout society, and obelisks are just another form of, so you got to look at it from, because see, like today we look at it as perverts, right? We're all like, that leader, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to them, it was a symbol of fertility. And when you're a civilization that is, fighting to survive, you're going to take pride in like, yes, that is what is, just like fertility goddesses and fertility images, like the Babylonian woman, I believe, without the head or the legs.
Yep.
It's just, they took pride in that. We look at it and like, yeah, we know what that is, you jokesters. And maybe they were jokesters because maybe they thought similar, like people are going to realize these are wieners one day. We got them. But no, I think people took more pride in their civilization. A lot of the civilizations were more homogenous. So you didn't have like a bunch of different ideas and concepts flowing freely throughout society. It was boom, boom, boom. You might have had other cultures coming in, but it wasn't going to take over that culture. This was just trading partners that you had to trade with because you needed stuff that they had. They needed stuff that you had. So for me, it's just, I think it shows pride of your civilization. It's a little weird to us to think about, but we have to remember there's whole like sexual museums in places like Thailand and in India, and it's on temples and people just doing it. And that's normal everyday things. Here we see that kind of stuff and we joke because our society isn't based around being proud of your civilization. It's just what you can get out of society and how far you can go in society. And that's what we're based on.
We could do a whole episode about that.
We 100% could. But yes, to get back real quick, I do think that those little like markers and things like that are just code. They're code for like, here's the best place to go eat. Go try this. Or like, I love my wife. Or just things like that.
Eat at Joe's.
Yes, exactly. That's what I think.
Stephen, similar question. Considering that the Masons used these throughout early history and the prevalence of the ratio in the Fibonacci sequence, do you think that architecturally they were designed to be there as a message always for future people to look at, or if it was just a natural, that's what happened when we built it?
I agree with Rob. I think it's a little bit of both. I think sometimes it happens naturally, like we suggested earlier, and sometimes it happens naturally just by coincidence. And then other times, I think what happened is it started to happen naturally, and then over time, they figured it out and started doing it intentionally. So I think some of it was natural and some of it is intentional, and that some of it is intended to be like, like signs to, like, hey, I found this natural thing and I got so good at masonry that I was able to perfect it. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
To touch on something you said, I think it's also for almost like directional places, like, if you're looking for this place, go this way. Yeah. Or if you're looking for a lodge, go this way, especially at a time when Freemasonry was not accepted. The Catholic Church was not a big fan of Freemasonry. So what better way to point to lodges than by leaving other little messages that only Master Masons would be able to understand? Yeah. Oh, okay, there's a lodge coming up here. Cool. I see where I can like stash my goods, or I can get some good rest for
like
the day. I don't have to worry
used
about
to
stuff.
Do.
Yes.
Because Masonry because of the formulas that they used and because of the esoteric knowledge they had and how they constructed things, such as the ratio,
Yes.
they were looked upon not just as other craftsmen. Like they had all kinds of guild people and a lot of other, industries that were just whatever. These people know how to do that. These people know how to do that. The Masons were looked on a little bit more suspiciously because they had what was claimed to be secret knowledge in how to build these things. It wasn't just that they build structures that would stay up. It's that they could build them in certain ways that communicated things at the same time. And of course, the Catholic Church, a lot of those other big organizations coming in, they don't like that kind of stuff. They don't like you to have secrets, because if you have secrets, obviously it's not something divine. Because if it was something divine, they would know it already. Because they're the divine. They're the top of the heap. The God speaks directly to us. He doesn't speak to you. So you must know something that you're not supposed to. And we want to know it so that we can keep it from people, because it's dangerous.
Because you're keeping it from us and it's dangerous.
That's
right. We
want
to keep it from you because it's dangerous.
So, it was all propaganda and it was all power sharing. And that's one of the biggest reasons why Freemasonry today is just a bunch of guys in a club, basically. You're going to get a lot of people that are going to say, oh, the Freemasons run the world and all these famous people were Freemasons. But you go to any lodge in any town in America generally,
you can join right now. I've met
do
Freemasons.
Little walk.
Yeah.
You do the little ceremony, and it's kind of a weird ceremony, but it's not like, and that's it.
Anyone
can join.
Yeah. It's the higher ups. But once again, I think a lot of times people, the Freemasons run the world type stuff. I get it. And I'm not saying that there might not be a part of them that does, but your local Tom Johnson down the street, he's not increasing or decreasing the inflated rate on money, right?
I have my own whole little theory.
But I do think there is an upper echelon of people in clubs that we can't even get into ever, because we're not of pure blood. And by pure blood, I don't mean a racial thing. I mean, we're not of fine stock. We
Royalty.
don't have the family
certain
lineage.
Families and certain,
and those certain families run the world. And that's, I mean, we can go on and on about that. But at the end of the day, I think that Freemasonry didn't start out in the same fashion that everybody puts on it, because a lot of these guys don't actually do any masonry whatsoever. I think Freemasonry just kind of died when Masons themselves were not the core members. You know what I mean?
Mass production.
There it is.
It was easier just to create the materials. You didn't have to have a master degree in anything. You didn't have to know secrets to make bricks or to make buildings, to make skyscrapers. Once that happened, it was the end. You were basically extinct.
And that's how society works.
To finish off for the last few minutes, this is going to lead into next week, because next week we're going to get into a lot of deeper stuff about it, because we got your boy down there who's eager to get into it.
Real quick, there's going to be a date change. We're going to move the show to Friday.
That's right. We did talk about that.
I will not be here Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'm going camping with my son and my mother, my father. Much needed vacation, much needed nature experience, very much needed. So I will not be here, and I don't want to do the show without me being here, because that wouldn't make any sense. So Friday, that would be, let's see, what is that? Like June 3rd, 4th?
No, the 3rd is a Tuesday.
Okay, so
next
6th.
Friday would be the 6th.
Okay, okay. So the 6th.
And you did mention that. I forgot about it till now. So good remembering, because I would have just plowed on through.
They were like, "Where's Rob at?" He's just like,
"What the heck?" But to lead into that, considering the ratio and the sequence, and how not only are they a part of a lot of things that we do on a day-to-day basis when creating things, and considering that it's also part of plants and animals and parts of the universe, it becomes more and more clear that almost everything in the universe as we know it can be explained through mathematics, even through some of the most basic numbers, which, while not being a math guy, I am a huge fan of numerology, and that goes right alongside of that. Now, I know a lot of numerology was kind of attached and created with, again, what we mentioned last week. We mentioned about, it was a word with a C. Oh gosh, now the word's out of my head, but it's about how things connect. Like iron is for Mars and red is for Mars, etc. The numbers were made up, not the numbers themselves, but the associations were kind of attached to things based on what some people thought at a given time. But it's still accurate depending on how you look at things. And as much as I don't understand some of the deeper levels of mathematical equations and theories, like past the most basic algebra, I'm dumb as a brick. I can't figure it out. I just don't know.
Same.
That doesn't mean that I can't see the fact that the entirety of the universe
Is based
can
in
be
math.
brought down to mathematical equations. You can explain everything, almost every single facet of life, the universe, and everything, as the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy would tell you, in numbers and equations. And if you know the math and if you know the patterns, you could essentially understand the past, you could predict the future, you could predict how societies are going to rise and fall. There's power there. It's mathematics. Early mathematics was magic, basically.
Yes.
When people think about magical things, magical spells, it wasn't energies and it wasn't this and that. It was understanding patterns, and mathematics is vitally important in understanding patterns,
whether I like it or not.
With that being said, Stephen, what do you think? Do you agree with that?
Yes, that is like verbatim exactly the thought that I've been having since I started looking into the Fibonacci sequence. Is like, I hate it. I really hate math. I always have. I literally graduated high school with 1 point away from failing, and I had the worst time. I've never understood it. But since looking into the Fibonacci sequence and, wanting to get into computer science, like you said, I finally acknowledged that math is incredibly important, whether I like it or not. So I may as well just go ahead and learn it.
And I already know the answer if I'm going to ask my good buddy down here. But tell the people, what do you think?
Are we basing this? See, the thing is, I love math. My brain couldn't get it when I was a child, but as I got older and was able to study it and learn from other people, and really take it all in for what it was worth and what it is and what it's about, I absolutely love it. It's the language of the universe. It's a foreign language, but it's numbers. Now, when you start throwing letters in like A's and E's and alphas, it throws me off a little bit, but
joules of electricity and J is a variable.
I think that math, I think there's a reason why they make math hard for people to learn, because it's dangerous. Like, if we really look at math, it's dangerous.
The atomic bomb.
You start looking at nuclear fission, you start looking at quantum computing. Like, we're looking at a time that's going to revolutionize our society as a whole, and it's all based on mathematics. And mathematics can be used for good or evil, but they're not good or evil. And inherently, they're just numbers. But people know how to put them together to cause things to happen.
And it's everywhere. I mean, mathematics it's in our manufacturing, obviously, because you have to, do the computer-aided drafting and all that. You got the golden ratio to help you build things. It's in music. I'm a very musical person. I understand musical scales, and all of that is mathematical, which is a weird kind of disconnect in my brain in how I can understand musical theory, and I can't get math. I don't know. Maybe it's just I don't know. Maybe it's part of my energies is blocked, and I'm just whatever. But there's so many things that that mathematics is connected to, like the amount in your food. If you have an ingredient that's off by just a smidge, the food's gonna suck, or it's gonna kill you, or it's gonna be delicious.
Ooh, tapioca! Talk about tapioca.
I don't know about tapioca.
Okay, I'll tell him. Can I tell him?
Yes.
This will be our lead out. We'll talk about tapioca. We'll
yes. So tapioca pudding is incredibly dangerous. It's as dangerous as the blowfish. And if you get the way they have to cook it is very precise. And if you get it off by even the tiniest little amount, it can become lethal, like ricin, and undetectable.
You know what? I believe that. I believe that because that's how a lot of things are. A lot of foods, a lot of things that we eat, herbs and spices and whatnot, are actually semi-toxic. It's just how you prepare it that makes it safe enough to eat. I mean, we're eating. Some people in this group eat the hot chip challenge and go nuts with that kind of stuff. And some people are obviously still kicking. Other people, like myself, would be kicking on the floor like, oh my God. But it's fascinating how often that ratios of things, if they're off by just a tiny little bit, that's the end, or that's perfect, or that's delicious, or that's awful, or I'm dead and I can't describe it no more.
Or that's a black hole.
You know, it's how it is. And that's going to set the stage for Friday. That's all I have as far as Fibonacci and the golden ratio. I know I kept things really super simple. So if you don't understand, that's okay. Do some research on the side. There's a lot more to it. I kept it as basic as I could to fit within our time frame here.
Right.
And how I could explain it, because not being a math person, I didn't want to just rattle off a bunch of equations that I didn't know what they were about. So, but next week on Friday, special day, special time, we're going to be talking sacred geometry with this guy.
On,
and I don't know if me and Steven are ever going to get a word in. I think he's going to just talk about it the whole time. He's going to say, what do you guys think about that? We're going to say, oh, I think it's pretty cool. And he's just say, well, let me tell you how cool it is. And he's just going to go on about it.
Yeah, because I got the quadrivium. Where you at? Yeah, I got the quadrivium right around there. I'm gonna pull it out and read it. No, I'm gonna do a little better this time. I want to make it more family fun friendly sacred geometry, because it's a lot. Do you think this is dense? This is a whole. This is monad, triad, and there's all these extra numbers, and there's all these like magic.
Get the metaphysics involved, and then it just goes.
I remember the last time he did an episode about this.
And Solomon's Temple was built using sacred geometry. Listen, I have 3 days in nature, and I'm taking my Bible, and I'm going to take the quadrivium, and I'm going to.
He's going to
on my downtime. Yeah, this is my favorite thing to talk about. So we are set to go. I could go now, probably, but you want to do a show now? You want to do a 2-hour show? Oh, I'm kidding. No, but yeah, stay tuned. It's going to be good. And we'll go slow, so people won't get caught up in anything crazy. So yeah.
As always, anybody who's watching our shows, if there's anything you don't understand, by all means, either ask us a question, and if we can't answer it, we will guide you to places where you could potentially look up information and try to get it on your own. Because we know some of the stuff we present, it's not always easy to get into. Even some of the paranormal stuff is just kind of like, I don't get it. It's okay. You don't have to get everything, and you don't have to take our word for it. Always do your due diligence, which we haven't said for a while. But
we say it.
By all means, check into that, and then tell us what you discovered and tell us what you thought about it. You can always comment on one of our videos. You can comment on the This Uncanny Earth Media Network Facebook page. You can go to This Uncanny Earth Official, the group. It's a I think it's a public group, isn't it? Or is it a private group?
No, the group is the main page is public and the group is private.
Yeah, because we can't change it now because Facebook changed the rules like 2 years ago, and we're gonna change it and we can't. So you can be a member of the group if you want. Just ask to join. We'll let you in.
Yeah, it's not a group like no, not you. You
didn't. It's a private group.
Do you read Fibonacci quarterly? Then hail to the
what you're doing with your golden ratio over there, cheeseburger? No.
Listen, whoever gets rich from the three of us first has to buy the other two a 1-year subscription to Fibonacci Quarterly.
The highest, the $900 some one. It's got to be the best one, like with all of the perks.
Listen,
you get to meet Fibonacci's ghost yourself.
I'm just going to stay broke, so you two have to do it. You get a free golden ratio.
That's what we got.
I got about 13
right there. Thank you for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Visit our various places. I'm still doing Twitch streaming. Rob is doing Twitch streaming. We've got DMGRGN with me. Uncanny Alchemist with Rob. He's doing Mass Effect Legendary Edition, Mass Effect 3. Yeah.
I'm almost at the end. The game's taking forever, but I'm almost there. But I'm also doing Elden Ring because I'm taking out a lot of my frustration and dying. So, but listen, that's how it's forged in steel.
Yep.
Steven, what are you playing? What are you doing? What are you doing right now?
I am thinking about reworking my stuff right now, and I'm gonna try to get some more VR content up on my YouTube, and then switch it around and start doing more of my normal 2D game streams on Twitch.
Sweet. June 3rd, there's an Ask Me Anything on my YouTube channel. Spider Does Things. Anybody can show up and ask whatever they want. And if somebody wants to show up and actually show up on the stream, I will send you the StreamYard link and we can hang out for a little while. I'll be there. I'll be having some drinks. I'll be just goofing along.
He will be goofing along.
Doing that thing that I do. And we're going to have some fun. So June 3rd, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. Pacific, because I know some of you folks on the Pacific have nothing else to do at that time. Trust me. And that's it. I think we're good. So we're going to say goodnight and good night.
Why be boring when you can be uncanny? You guys take care. And listen, next week, y'all better have your thinking caps on. Take your dunce caps off, put the thinking caps back on. Start using that thing between your two ears. And we will see you then. Peace.